I turned this early 2000s Sonic LCD McDonald's Happy Meal toy into this. A fully playable 3D game crammed inside a console the size of a McDonald's nugget. And this is how I did it. These were my favorite toys from a McDonald's Happy Meal when I was a kid. It beeped, it flashed, and that was enough to blow my tiny little mind. I think it got to a point where I begged my parents for Maccas, yes, that's what we call it in Australia, just to get these toys and not even eat the Happy Meal. Now, nostalgia is a beautiful and terrible thing because these games are absolutely shit. I mean, just listen to this sound. But what if this thing didn't just pretend to be a game? What if it actually was one? A 3D one. And hopefully a good one. So, I decided to crack open this old Sonic LCD toy and turn this into a real game console. Like, fully playable, 3D graphics, buttons, everything. It's what little me thought he was getting when opening his Happy Meal. I had the wonderful idea of making this with a Raspberry Pi. No, not that one, this one. I thought to myself, do I A, 3D print a new shell, B, just use a bigger handheld on the market, C, just make it on the computer and call it a day, and D, replace the original guts with my own setup. And of course, I chose the dumbest and hardest one and picked D. To do this, I was going to need the small but powerful Raspberry Pi Zero 2W, mainly because it was small compared to the Raspberry Pi 4. And also because I don't know anything about hardware and wiring, I did what any novice would do and chose a kit. I went with Waveshare's GamePi 1.3-inch screen console kit, simply because you just need to connect the Raspberry Pi's headers straight to the system. Before I get into building the game, I chose this green-shelled Sonic action game mainly because it was the only one I could see fitting my setup into the shell. The other ones I had were just not going to work. Plus, the game for me represented Sonic the best, without any different characters or quirks. As I said before, the original game was really bad, as expected from a fast food toy. You're what looks like Sonic, auto-running through a glitchy calculator screen, dodging obstacles, collecting enough rings that look like donuts to win, and praying the button mashing actually works as the level progresses in 3 different speeds. It's chaos, it's clunky, it's typical LCD fast food gaming. So, it was time to remake it in 3D. And sorry Unity, this thing needs to run on a chicken nugget with a screen. Maybe next Happy Meal. For this, I'm gonna try Godot for the first time. Technically speaking, Unity is overkill for what I'm doing. I just need a static camera, a simple 3D world, and Godot gives me way smaller build sizes, can possibly run on a Raspberry Pi Zero 2W 32-bit system, and no runtime fees. Lol. To start, I remade each Sonic model in Magicavoxel, and just like my other 3D builds, I made it like a 3D sprite sheet, so that each animation frame is a pre-baked 3D render, so there's no interpolation, no weird blending, just crisp, chunky motion that feels fast and retro at the same time. I know that this would definitely be taking most of the Raspberry Pi's computational power, as you can see how many vertices are in one model.
Oh my god!
But it was worth it. And look, I put so much effort into these Sonic models, almost a full week, that I might just have to do a remake of the original Sonic game with them, without cutting corners and resorting to a fully 3D Sketchfab Sonic. Haha. Just joking. You're the biggest inspiration. Please come back to YouTube. It's been like a year, man. Next, I wanted the game to feel like one of those weird 3D Game Boy Advance games. You know, the ones where everything looks 3D, but kind of flat at the same time. Like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 or Sonic Battles. To capture that vibe, I used an orthographic camera instead of a normal 3D perspective camera. Orthographic differs from a perspective camera as everything stays the same size no matter how far it is. That makes it look more like a 2D game pretending to be a 3D game, or a 2.5D isometric game, which was perfect for this LCD-inspired Sonic game. To build the environment, I made 2 planes, with a custom scrolling shader, so it looks like Sonic is moving, and a sphere with the normal flip so the texture is on the inside. I added in my voxel models of the ring and ledge, and spawned 2 different sized ledges just like the original game at random, with the only rule being that a tall edge needs to come after the short ledge no matter what. This was great until I realized my game had way too many vertices, so I just changed the voxel ledges to just a cube with a texture, and that fixed the problem. All those extra vertices were now just from Sonic. I then created 3 different speed levels, and once Sonic gets 20 rings, he wins. 20 rings, he wins. Man, try saying that fast. And that was pretty much it. Apart from a few drawbacks and trying to learn GD scripts, Godot is an amazing game engine, and definitely one that I'd come back to for more lightweight projects. I give it an 8 out of 10. The most important step was to ensure that this worked on the device. And everyone, time to buckle up your seatbelts, this one's gonna get technical. This might just be the first real-time 3D Godot game ever run on a Raspberry Pi 02W using just an SPI screen and the Lite OS. Not HDMI, not 2D, this thing is doing what it absolutely should not be doing. So I'll break this down into steps. Step 1, rebuilding Godot for the Pi. You can't just download Godot and run it, it's built for proper computers. And this is where my uni course and shell scripting came in handy. I spun up Docker with an ARM v7 compatible Linux container and compiled the game engine from source because compiling it straight on the Pi would take way too long. This lets me strip out heavy stuff that the Pi can't handle, like video codecs, WebM support, and fancy audio libraries, making the game engine runnable on the Pi's 32-bit OS. Step 2. Optimizing the game. Next, we basically diet mode the entire game. Textures crushed, shaders simplified to the point of sadness, lighting, one directional light, no shadows, and it still almost cooked the Pi. Step 3. Transfer and launch. I moved the custom Godot binary and the game PCK file to the Pi. Fire up a minimal GUI using StartX and manually launch the game. If you're lucky, you'll see Sonic. Step 4. The display. The icing on the cake is that this isn't running on a regular monitor. This is a tiny 1.3-inch SPI LCD screen, the kind that was never meant for real-time graphics. It was designed for simple tasks. The most you'll get out of it is some retro games in 2D through RetroPie. But we forced it to run a full-blown 3D game, and it's not as simple as just plugging it in. SPI is super slow, it transfers data 1 bit at a time. So to even make this work, you need to compile a special tool called FBCB ILI 9341, which literally mirrors the Raspberry Pi's screen frame buffer and pumps frames to the LCD as fast as it physically can, using every trick available. And the best part, there's no HDMI involved at all. The whole thing is running directly off the Pi through that tiny screen. And the last step, the A button to make Sonic jump. Using a Python script, I turned a GPIO pin into a virtual spacebar. Godot didn't like this at first, it ignored the synthetic key events, so I ditched the input map and caught raw key presses manually. So, in short, it took cross-compiling, frame buffer hacking, driver configs, and code changes at both the engine and game level just to make a Hedgehog jump on a $15 Linux nugget. But now it was time to put it into the shell. This thing had triangle screws. I went to the hardware store 3 times and only found one screwdriver kit with the correct tip. I think it was to make sure that kids couldn't open it. And then I painfully gutted the Sonic toy shell and tried to cram everything inside. And as you can see, my whole video was going to go to shit because after painstakingly shaving everything down, the Pi with the game kit wouldn't really fit. But then I had an idea. I got the big boy tools out and just cut a small area so that the Pi can connect to the game Pi from the outside via the headers. And that worked. And I never said I was artistic in any way. This is just my first version of the console, so please don't judge. And so I give you the world's first McDonald's Sonic game that can actually play 3D Sonic, or at least something 3D Sonic-like. It kind of reminds me of Sonic 3D Blast. It works, the buttons are clicky, the game plays smooth-ish, and the sound? well, not there. But hey, it's still better than the original, right? I also had a problem getting the UI elements showing up on the screen, so I just left it. This is obviously the first iteration of the game. The next steps would be to make a cleaner version, make it portable with this voltage booster and battery, but that's a video for another time. Otherwise, thanks for your support, keep subscribing and liking. I'm trying to aim for 10k subs before the year ends. Alright, bye.